Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, interestingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everyone. Tonight is Thursday, November 13th, 2025. This is live stream 1257. Zoinks. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, usually what we'll do is we will actually take a look at the latest in tabletop role-playing game news of the day, and then I will dive in and take a first look, usually, at a role-playing game product. Every once in a while, I might crack open a board game or maybe tackle a topic related to our hobby, or maybe even just devote the show to an AMA and just chew the fat with chat. Well, tonight, there is no TTRPG news because we're going to devote the show to looking at two new releases for Dungeons & Dragons from Wizards of the Coast. We're going to be looking at Heroes of Faerûn as well as Adventures in Faerûn, both of these set in the Forgotten Realms. So we're going to dive right on into that in just a few moments. But I do want to mention, if you happen to be tuning in for the first time, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you're not going to find here on the YouTube channel. Come on. By now, you know the drill. Also, because this is a live show, there is chat available. You must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. It's one of the ways we keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you happen to check that box and you want to say howdy, maybe you get a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my very best to respond. First out the gate tonight is Kevin R. Smith. Once again, we're still getting the kind of strange nicknames for people. So some of these I have to kind of translate a little bit. So it's Kevin's lore, but it's Kevin R. Smith. Keith Ulu's with us, Sean O'Donnell, as well as J-Man, and Darius Terma is also hanging with the gang. And I would take a wild guess that very possibly the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is lurking in the shadows as one of our chat moderators. Could be pulling one of those Plan 9 from outer space moves. Oh yeah, I'm Bella Lugosi. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's me. Yeah. I'm still alive. I'm here on set. Yes, and yes, Sarah is with us tonight. Very, very nice. I should also point out, stay tuned, because I am going to tell you how you can get into the running to win both of these books over at D&D Beyond. That's right. I will be giving away a copy of Heroes of Faerûn as well as Adventures in Faerûn to one lucky viewer. You do not have to be watching live. So important for you to keep that in mind. You do have to be a subscriber to the channel, though. And I will tell you how to get into the running. If you follow the show, you already know how the contest is going to work. You're pretty used to it by now. All right, Chris Lundgren and Max Apocalypse have both joined us. Welcome aboard. So first off, we are going to dive on in once again. If you're tuning in a little bit late, no tabletop gaming news, no role-playing game news tonight, because we're looking at both of the new D&D releases. So first up is Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerûn. This is a 192-page hardcover. It is available now. In fact, I believe it came out yesterday. I got this in the mail. Oh, was it? Yeah, it was. It was yesterday afternoon. Yes, because I fall into those reviewers who get it on release day because they don't want me, telling people what I think before they go on sale. Oh, yeah. Hey, that's okay. Hey, which would you rather have? Me not cover these books, or know that I'm going to cover these books and I'm going to tell you what I think, not what I think a company wants to hear. Yes, I'm sure you like that. Anyway, Heroes of Faerûn is player-facing. Carries an MSRP of $49.99 with just the digital aspect over on D&D Beyond. It is $29.99. And then, of course, there's a special bundle for you to get both. All right, so let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Heroes of Faerûn. A few things to mention before we jump on in. First of all, the fine folks over at Wizards of the Coast were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this first look with you. It's always important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a good feel for what you're going to find inside. Also, keep in mind, this is player facing, so it's not like there's going to be any spoilers or anything like that. So as a player, you can kick back, relax, and enjoy. Lastly, we will look at fewer pages than we normally would with most role-playing game releases that I peek at, simply because Wizards of the Coast is not overly fond of too much getting out there in videos. I don't necessarily want to get any sort of a cease and desist or, a takedown notice or anything like that. So I will also kind of leave my hands kind of covering up little bits and pieces of the book as we take a peek. Max Apocalypse says Jeff is a dangerous man. I don't know about how dangerous I might be, but I tell you what I think. All right. So, Indarius Terminus says, it's Karlach, Blackstaff, Minsk, and Yarlax. Is it Yarlax or Yaraxel? I got to be honest, I am not a Drizzt reader, so I'm not overly familiar. But I think Indarius Terminus is correct. I think that's who that is. There you go. Semper Buffo is popping on into chat. Scott Lazarus 8066 is popping on in. Said the cover is only okay. Where's Elminster? Probably in some orgy somewhere. That's a little inside baseball for you. For y'all. Yeah, you thought this was going to be, a show for the kids, right? No, I indicate all my videos are not aimed at kids. So Max Apocalypse also points out, double feature with an intermission. Well, you're just going to have to wait to find out. Lord Cost 2000 is also jumping on into chat. All right, let's take a peek at the back. First off, you know what? Truth be told, I am not a big fan of this trade dress. This trade dress just looks sort of, And I get it. It seems, for whatever reason, Wizards of the Coast is trying to kind of lure in board gamers to Dungeons and Dragons, and this kind of fits the bill. This looks like that would be the trade dress on a board game. All right. Claim your legend. Wield ancient magic, outwit mighty dragons, and unearth the secrets of forgotten empires. Forgotten Realms Heroes of Faerûn is your guide to legendary character creation in the Forgotten Realms. It's going to tell us what is inside, but we are going to take a peek ourselves. I believe we also get a poster map with this. Yeah, it might be a poster map of the Forgotten Realms. I'm not sure. All right. So, first thing we're going to do, let's look at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard to bring this to life. And, of course, when I make little snide comments about Wizards of the Coast, I don't mean any disrespect to any of the folks who work on these game releases. I just kind of poke the bear a little bit from time to time, I must say. Yes. I will also point out the alternate covers are pretty cool. I actually like the alternate covers more than the covers that are on the, I guess, standard edition. I believe these are available through retailers. I think if you go to your local game stores, you will get that. Now, that does not mean you can go to Borders and get this cover. I think it's the cover that's on the book we're taking a peek at. All right, so let's see what we've got. An introduction to the world of epic heroes. We have our first chapter is character options. Second chapter is a guide to the realms. Third chapter is Gods of Faerûn. Chapter 4 is Aurora's whole realms catalog, like Sears and Roebuck. Chapter 5 is Magic of Faerûn. And then we have chapter 6, Factions of Faerûn, which looks like it might actually take up the most amount of page space. Scott says, Borders, you're dating yourself, Jeff. I got to say, there's a few Borders by me. No joke. One actually opened not too long ago. And I know there are quite a few folks who go to Borders to pick up board games as well as role-playing games. I think it's Kevin R. Smith has talked about how some of the Goodman Games releases have been found in Borders, like the core rulebook for Dungeon Crawl Classics. Kevin R. Smith says, well, Jeff could have said Walden's and really dated himself. Yes. Gosh, I remember back in the day, you could go to a good-sized mall and you had 2 or 3 bookstores. It was like, wow. All right. So let's jump on in. Actually, I'm using this artwork for the thumbnail. I wish this was the cover. This is awesome. I love this artwork here. This is just fantastic. This is all one piece. And I saw this and I was like, wow, that really looks cool. Why isn't this the cover of the book? Welcome to Faerûn. The world of Faerûn is filled with countless heroes who have undertaken amazing adventures. Dris Durin. Is it Duerden? Isn't that it? Isn't that the pronunciation on it? Like I said, I just mentioned I don't really read the Drizzt books. His wife, Catti and their daughter, Brianel. Oh, sure. Yeah, are they gonna bust out all these unpronounceable names on me? Karlach, Cliffgate, Astarion, and Shadowheart. Now the world has new heroes, the ones you and your fellow players create. So yes, they are really gonna play up the Baldur's Gate 3 angle on this. Stray Kismet is joining us in chat. Welcome aboard. Of course, keep in mind, this is for new Dungeons and Dragons. Some people like to refer to this as D&D 5.5. Others, Dungeons and Dragons 2024. So this is for the latest iteration of the world's most popular fantasy role-playing game. A world of epic heroes. So we're going to start off with our character options, a guide to the realms, Gods of Faerûn, the whole realms catalog, and then Magic of Faerûn, as well as our factions. Talking about other resources here. So D&D novels, video games, movies. It appears that the presentation here is aimed at people who probably don't know much about D&D. Maybe they've picked up the 3 core books of Dungeons and Dragons 2024. Or maybe they've picked up Heroes of the Borderlands and they're kind of interested in kind of advancing things along. It does seem that that's the kind of voice that this book is utilizing. So here's our character options. We've got our different species. So Dragonborn. Oh, so it's going to talk about all of the species here. Goliaths, halflings, humans, orcs. And then we're going to get into backgrounds, right? My guess. Oh, subclasses. There we go. That was one of the big things that was discussed during the Gen Con press event for D&D, where we were introduced to both of these new books. And there was a lot of time devoted to the subclasses here and the factions. Those were the 2 aspects of this book that they spoke about the most. So we've got our subclasses. College of the Moon, a bard trained by druids of the Moonshae Isles with a special connection to local folk tales and mysterious shrines called Moonwells. The Knowledge Domain, a cleric of Gand, Mistra, Ogmar, Saloon, or other deity who values knowledge, craft, or secrets. A Banneret, a fighter who leads others into battle. Oath of the Noble Genies, a paladin empowered by the elemental magic of the genies of Kalimshan. Isn't that getting kind of specific? That's really specific, right? Chris Lundgren says they're going to dump their 3 core rule books for 5e and just move forward with 5.5. No point in playing the dead version in events. It's all 5.5. Yeah, I can see taking that direction. I can also see the folks out there who have picked up every single release from Wizards of the Coast for 5e saying, hey, you know what? I am going to continue playing in this system that I and my players are familiar with. So I see both sides of the coin, staying or leaving. We also have the Winter Walker, a ranger of the north wielding magic of cold and ice. Scion of the Three, a rogue who taps into the deadly power of 3 evil gods, Bane, Ball, and Miracle. Spellfire Sorcery, a sorcerer born with the ability to manipulate spellfire. And then we had the Blade Singer, a wizard who has mastered an ancient elven technique of magical combat. So also want to point out, if I mispronounce anything, got to realize this is not a Dungeons and Dragons channel. I do cover D&D, but I also cover, over 100 other role-playing games as well. Plus, also board games and such. So sorry if I'm mispronouncing some of your favorite heroes or deities or places. All right, so this is just going to give us some information about each of these subclasses. So as an example, taking a look at the Winter Walker. Winter Walkers hone their craft in the bleak and frozen wilds of places like Icewind Dale. These ruthless, rhymed rangers hunt monsters that haunt Arctic wastelands, eventually becoming frigid terrors themselves. Winter Walkers are well versed in the phenomena of Icewind Dale, including the latent magic of fallen Netherese cities, endemic monsters like yetis and crag cats, and the rising threat of Underdark invaders. Due to their cold pragmatism, terrifying magic and mastery of the region, Winter Walkers are regarded with equal parts respect and fear. 10-town citizens say that Winter Walkers' frequent exposure to malignant entities gives them their fearsome powers. Well. And then it's going to give us the various different abilities they receive as they level up. Get some new backgrounds. We've got the Freebooter, the Dead Magic Dweller, Ice Fisher, Dragon Cultist, Harpers, Knight of the Gauntlet. So we have some regional backgrounds. We also have faction backgrounds. And it's going to get into each of them. That's kind of an interesting approach with the artwork here. Kind of an interesting new layout. All right, some new feats. So we have origin feats, general feats, also epic boons. It's going to tell us some of these. We have the boon of bloodshed, boon of bountiful health, boon of the bright sun. These are all epic. Cult of the Dragon Initiate. That's an origin boon. We also have a Spellfire Adept. That's general. So all that information here. Kevin King is with us. Says at least all the artwork isn't blurry watercolors and whimsy. No, I haven't seen any hot cross buns yet. Not yet. A Guide to the Realms. So Chris Langren's talking about things that they've got that they're going to hang on to for 5e. Funny enough, I actually have, it's behind me, but it's above the camera view. I have every single 5e release from Wizards of the Coast except for it's one that they ended up discontinuing. Oh, actually, I should say there's two of them that I don't have. One is the Giants, and then the other one is a source book and that's it. I mean, I've got every other thing out there. And funny enough, when I go to Gen Con, I'll go into the auction store and see if they've got what is it? It's like the Frost Giants that's on the cover. I always look to see if they've got that, at a halfway decent price to pick it up. I honestly, I could probably just go onto eBay and get it. But I think the one that's out of print now is fairly pricey. All right, so now we're going to get into the actual region. So we're going to get a bit of it looks like we've got a gazetteer here. So as an example, we've got the Arcane Empires. We get an overview, get it at a glance. What realms are included? What languages do they speak? What are some of the landmarks? And what are some of the threats? And of course, we have the Red Wizards of Thay. Sir King's Thunder, thank you, yes. No, I've got Rime of the Frostmaiden. In fact, I reviewed it. In fact, Kevin R. Smith just pointed out that I reviewed it. And some people took issue with my review. But Chris Leonard says their local book off used books chain is in California, loaded with 5th edition books selling for less than $6, some even $3. They've got tons. And they barely see them move when they go to the store. Yeah, sadly, I don't have that near me. We've got like half-price books, which are never half price. But they're always like double the actual price. All right, so the Arcane Empires. For centuries, the Red Wizards of Thay have threatened Faerûn, but no one has felt that threat more acutely than the realms of Aglarond and Rashimon, who have fought off Thayan raids and invasions and kept Thay bottled up within its old borders. So then we're going to get information about those realms. So yeah, this is striking me kind of like an introduction to the Forgotten Realms, at least for the players. Now, Adventures in Faerûn isn't only adventures, it's also a lot of Dungeon Master facing info too. So we got the Lands of Intrigue. Got the North. You're going to get the Sword Coast. There we go. Bing, Sword Coast. I will guarantee that the poster map that we've got in this book is going to be this. All right. So quite a lot of page space devoted to that. Okay, so now we got deities, right? Yep. Gods of Faerûn, forms of worship, new and foreign gods, dead and resurrected gods. And we will get into the different deities here. If I remember correctly from the press event, I think they were talking about 14. Although it looks like there's more than 14 here. Yeah, there's certainly more than 14. Hell yeah, there are. Oh, there you go. Shar. I know my mug is blocking it out, but. And here is Aurora's Whole Realms catalog. Welcome to Aurora's Whole Realms catalog. My great-grandmother founded this business over a century ago, providing adventuring gear and tools of the trade to discerning clients across Faerûn. It is my privilege to carry on in her famous footsteps. What you see here is just a sample of the hundreds of items on sale at any of our Emporium shops located in towns and cities in every realm. If you don't see what you want at one of our shops, our special orders are swift and reliable and come with a satisfaction guarantee. We even deliver. So we've got some new equipment here, new gear. We're going to get into different kinds of magic, right? Yep, magic of Faerûn. So we get a discussion of the weave. I think we also get some info about wild magic in here. We've got some new spells. Hey, speaking of Elminster, Elminster's got a new spell here. Elminster's Illusion with an E. All right, then we get into Factions of the Realms. This is going to be our final section before we get into the appendices. Let's see. So Keith Lewis says Sword Coast, which as far as Wizards of the Coast is concerned, is the entirety of the Forgotten Realms. All right, Chris Lundgren's rocking on out. We'll see you next time, Chris. He's leaving to go sell his 5e stuff. All right, so it looks like getting in some info about the Harpers there. All right, let's use one as an example. The Order of the Gauntlet is a body of faithful justice seekers who seek out and eradicate evil. Probably shouldn't have used the word seek twice in that same sentence. Members of the order must be honorable in their actions, vigilant in their outlook, and zealous in their convictions. Moreover, they must always watch out for corruption from within. Most of the order's knights are heavily armored. Many wield shining blades or maces, and all wear their holy symbols proudly into battle. They embody virtue for its own sake and model ideals of bravery and piousness for the common people they protect. A worthy knight of the order risks anything to save a fellow knight or complete an important mission. But knights also acknowledge that zealotry can lead to fanaticism, and they caution each other to be wary of straying from the path of good. There you go. Kevin King says a friend of theirs read all of the Forgotten Realms novels. Wonder if this would make a good Christmas gift or if the changes would annoy them. The reality is that there aren't massive changes. We've got these interim. Yes. I like how we've got the equipment there. I think that's kind of cool. Although, aren't these guys, isn't this like the Thieves Guild? So I don't know if they'd be wearing all that. Maybe, maybe some of their enforcers would. Some of the other organizations. All right, so then we get into an index. And here is the poster map that is attached to the book. And sure enough, it is what I thought. And it is dual-sided. And it looks like we have a calendar. It might be a calendar on the back. All right. So that is a peek inside Dungeons & Dragons, Forgotten Realms, Heroes of Faerûn from Wizards of the Coast. We're going to take a look at Adventures in Faerûn in just a few moments. But I do want to stop for a second here and mention, if you like the video, by all means, give it a thumbs up. Of course, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find the Gaming Gang to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, there are a few different ways you can support the outlet. First of all, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites, such as Dungeon Masters Guild, Drive-Thru RPG, and so forth. And to do so, simply visit thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banners. If you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal. You can always buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Oh, that's lovely. Or become a monthly member of our Patreon. And during the live shows, I always like to give a shout out to our current Patreon members. So a big thank you to Gustavo Cavalho, Herman Lutman, Jason Lawman, Kuval, Kevin R. Smith, Sean O'Donnell, Telzek, Dan Webb, GameCat, Kevin King, Pete Strakulich, RPG Munch, Tessie Trekkie, Tier 2 DM, Agile Monk, and the Madman. Thank you kindly, everybody. It is much appreciated. All right, we are going to continue on with our double feature of first looks. Tonight, we're going to jump on in and take a peek at Adventures in Faerûn in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
Good evening. It's intermission time. And during the next 10 minutes, we invite you to visit our refreshment stand located in the center of the drive-in. Quick. You'll find hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, your favorite candies, hot and cold beverages, and other delicious snacks. So add to your fun of watching the movie. Visit our refreshment stand right now during our 10-minute intermission. We're glad to have you with us tonight. We hope you'll come to see us often. It's great. Get out to the movies.
Look, everybody! It's the M&M's Candies Man!
Who can take a peanut?
Who can take a peanut?
Make it a delight.
Make it a delight.
Cover it with chocolate, then candy coat it right. The M&M's Man.
The M&M's Man.
The M&M's Man, and he adds a lot of love to make it all taste good. And you know the milk chocolate melts in your mouth, not in your hand.
Hi there, time for Timer, your roving reporter. I'm talking to you from inside a fantastic factory, your digestive system. You know what we build here? You! Not out of wood or metal, but out of food. You see, you are what you eat, from your head down to your feet. Things like meat and eggs and fish you need to build up muscle tissue. Uh-oh. Hello, appetite control, more protein. We need energy. Playing tennis today, you know. Whoops. All these motors in your body need a lot of fuel to go on, like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, vitamins, and so on. What's left over forms the building blocks you need, indeed, to grow on. Yes, you are what you swallow, so that next time you feel hollow, don't just fill your face with any old kind of treat. This goes for every kid or 6-foot athlete. All you really are is what you eat.
How about a delicious cup of Wilkins coffee? No! Strange things happen to people who don't drink Wilkins.
Massive, mighty, magnificent, Hercules and the Captive Women. Here at last, an extraordinary adventure. Fascinating, compelling, thrilling. The ultimate in screen entertainment. Hercules and the Captive Women.
Kill me. Kill me, I beg you.
With a new and dynamic personality. Reg Park as Hercules. Frightening with barbaric rituals. Terrifying with murder and intrigue. Hercules, with all the power of his legendary strength, stands alone against these mysterious beings of superhuman power. Hercules and the Captive Women, caught in the grip of a beautiful and passionate woman whose secret sadistic love rituals gave him superhuman strength.
If you will join me in the conquest of the world, all mankind will recognize me as their queen and adore you as the one and only god. Love me, Hercules, and together we shall reign over men and gods.
Hercules and the Captive Women, starring Reg Park and Faye Spain. Don't miss this all-new, outstanding motion picture adventure. Massive in scope, mighty in thrilling action, magnificent in Technicolor and Technorama. Hercules and the Captive Women.
Mighty in scope. I have seen a lot of those. I want to say they're like 1950s Hercules movies out of Italy. I don't know why. Well, I think I've seen them mainly because of MST3K. I just never understand, why are there like multiple scenes of Hercules picking up something that's supposed to be heavy and then he just throws it and it breaks? He doesn't like hit anybody with it. He's not throwing it at anybody. He just throws it and it breaks and it's like, ooh. It's like in every single movie, it happens at least twice. All right, so we are going to dive on in and take a look at Adventures in Faerûn. But first, I want to let you know, how can you get into the running to be the lucky viewer who's going to score both of these books over at D&D Beyond. And it's going to be very simple. And as I mentioned earlier in the stream, if you already follow the Gaming Gang, you probably already know what this is going to entail. So first of all, you must be a subscriber to the channel in order to win. Now, hopefully you'll give a thumbs up to the video. I can't tell if you do or not, but do me a favor and give it a thumbs up. And then in the comment section, you've got a choice of either letting me know what sort of player option you thought looked the most interesting in Heroes of Faerûn, or what adventure or GM facing option in Adventures in Faerûn looks most interesting to you. Easy peasy. You've got until noon on Tuesday, which would be November 18th. And then I will reveal the winner on that night's live stream. So definitely get into the running. I'm giving one lucky viewer a copy of both of these volumes over at D&D Beyond. All right, having said that, let's shift gears and get back into our first looks. because we're going to be taking a peek at Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms Adventures in Faerûn. Now, this does clock in at 288 pages. It is geared towards dungeon masters with adventures, monsters, magic items, as well as more setting details. This is available now. It carries an MSRP of $59.99. I want to say that the digital edition is $39.99 over at D&D Beyond. And then, of course, as with Heroes of Faerûn, there is also a bundle for this too. And let's see, Wild Hunter has popped into chat with us tonight. Welcome aboard. Max Apocalypse says it's the original weird flex with the Hercules throwing stuff. All right. So let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Adventures in Faerûn. Same applies to this book as with the other book. It is a review copy. Wizards of the Coast was kind enough to send me, but nothing else has been gained for us to share this first look with you. Of course, we're not going to look at each and every page of this book either. And this is a Dungeon Master facing volume. So if you're a player and you're hoping your DM's picking this up, maybe you're looking forward to some of the adventures in here, keep in mind, even though I have not cracked this open, there are going to be some spoilers simply as we're flipping on through. And Darius Termina is curious who the cover character is. I don't know. We'll have to take a peek. Maybe it'll say inside. So take a look at the back here. Lands untold, secrets unearthed. Create endless adventures across the Forgotten Realms, where Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, and other storied lands await. Forgotten Realms Adventures in Faerûn gives dungeon masters the tools to craft unforgettable tales in this legendary world. And then it's going to tell us what's in here. Now, one of the things I had noticed when we were at that press event at Gen Con, or prior to Gen Con starting, actually, was how there was a lot of talk about the various different adventures that were going to be in here. And they were all like 1 or 2 pages in length. And I even commented on one of the live shows after I got back from Gen Con about how I was kind of surprised by that. I assume that they stuck to their guns with that. We'll find out. So we'll take a look at the credits page. And then it says on this cover, Valindra Shadowmantle commands her followers against Minsk and Boo. And Karlak and Yaraxel and Vajra. I'm not familiar with that character. So that is one of the big bads from Tomb of Annihilation, if I remember correctly. So that's who we've got on our cover. All right, so our contents here. We have an introduction to a world of adventure. And we have Running the Realms, which actually clocks in at about 35 pages. Then we get into the Dale Lands. So discussion of running campaigns in the Dale Lands. Then we get Icewind Dale. Klimshan, which, as I mentioned before, I wasn't really familiar with. So going to learn about that. We got the Moonshae Isles. Then we got Baldur's Gate. The Lost Library of Lecantos, or something like that. Some magic items and a bestiary. I thought there's an introductory adventure in here too. Oh, that's what the Lost Library is. That's an adventure. So maybe things are different. Maybe we don't have the 1 and 2 page adventures in this. Huh. We'll find out. All right. A world of adventure. An undead abomination stalks the snow in Icewind Dale. A scheming genie plots to conquer Kelishan. An insidious curse transforms people in the Moonshae Isles into rust-covered constructs. Corrupt politicians party with devils in Baldur's Gate. That sounds more like something we would have going on in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. An ancient god of rot grows in the heart of Daleland's forest. These are just some of the stories awaiting you in Forgotten Realms Adventures in Faerûn. The world of Faerûn is a setting for every kind of fantasy adventure, from survival horror to high magic. But adventures in the realms have one thing in common: their epic nature. Heroes adventuring in Faerûn seldom face mundane enemies with petty agendas. Instead, even the most ordinary antagonist is part of a grand plot, a larger-than-life adventure that pits the heroes against unforgettable foes. And Darius Terminus says, oh, she's the rando Thayan Elf Lich on the Tombs of Annihilation. Yeah, rando. All right. So there's your Axel again, running the realms. And of course, once again, I'm going to start skipping a bunch of pages here and dropping my hand on some of the pages. So, discussion of the realms. All right. So these are going to be in here, the adventures, which are really set pieces. Interesting. I'll have to, check these out before I actually kind of, pass any sort of judgment on them. Like I said, I thought it was kind of weird when they were talking about this book and they were discussing these, 1 and 2 page. They kept calling them adventures. To me, 1 or 2 pages is not necessarily, well, depending on, if it's an OSR adventure where it's all just bullet point stuff. But more modern role-playing games, usually if it's just a page, it's more like an encounter or a set piece, which is fine. I don't have an issue with that. It just feels weird. It's like, oh, it's an adventure. It's like, oh, okay. So it looks like each of our regions are going to have these, and they are broken up by level. So we got level 9. Are we going to go all the way to level 20? I don't think so. I'll guess we're going to get to maybe 14. That's my guess. No, 13. Oh, that was close. Next region, I'll actually take one of those and take a peek. So Indarius Terminus says it's essentially scenes. Kevin King says they do like their current dungeon map style for reading. Bit bland for a virtual tabletop, but still pretty solid. Still pretty solid. I agree with Kevin, though. I would like to see a little more color, a little more color depth, actually, to utilize these for a virtual tabletop. Once again, if you did not hear the big news, you can now get good old Fantasy Grounds. I don't know why I just did that and pointed to. You could get this paragraph absolutely free. Anyway. Yes, you can now get Fantasy Grounds absolutely free. That's why I'm talking with the gang about, yes, believe it or not, running a 5e D&D campaign and doing it through Fantasy Grounds. Because to my knowledge, just like with Foundry, which I like Foundry a ton, Foundry's learning curve is way too steep for somebody like me who does not have a ton of time that can be invested into the virtual tabletop. And I'll be the first to point out that I'm one of these people who it's like, oh man, it's gotta look really good. Oh man, I want to use every mod and stuff like that. Anyway, just like Pathfinder is kind of the premier role-playing game for Foundry, I've been kind of led to believe that it's 5e D&D, which is the kind of headline role-playing game for Fantasy Grounds. So I've been looking into it. And the thing is, I might actually have some openings for some players as well to join in. So those of you out there who might be available on Mondays from about 6:30 Central Time to maybe 9:30 Central Time. You'll have to let me know. I'll probably mention it on the Discord channel or server, I guess I should say. All right, so we're looking at what is this, Dale? The Dale lands. I like the Gazetteer. The Gazetteer looks pretty cool. And this is pretty much our standard approach that we've seen with Dungeons and Dragons, with 5th edition at least, where we get a bestiary that kind of gives us an overview, and then we'll get some places of interest. So our Dale Land stories focus on classic heroic fantasy. A wizard's abandoned tower rises on the edge of town. An insidious cult hides its ghastly rituals in a warren of caves. Drow cultists raid from the Underdark. Hostile and benevolent fae fill the nearby forest, within which a dragon makes its lair. These are elements of classic heroic fantasy adventure, and they perfectly describe life in the Dale Lands. This makes the Dale Lands particularly appropriate for DMs and players who enjoy D&D's most well-established tropes. All right. A home worth defending. We get a little DM's toolbox, it looks like, for each of these. Oh, look at this. We're not going to start off with first level. We're going right to level 3 and then level 5. All right, so here's the situation for the Tomb of Damara. The spirit of the ogre warlord Bone Gnasher grows restless and seeks Damara's fabled orb. Then it gives us our hook, gives us some encounters, and then it gives us a keyed map. Well, yeah, we're talking, even though it's not bullet points, they are essentially bullet points. So like the barracks in Great Hall says 2 ghouls dwell in the barracks. It says barrack, but it's supposed to be barracks. If creatures enter why are they using barrack as a singular? That's not a word. Or make loud noises in the Great Hall, the monsters pounce. Got a prison. It's like, oh, there you go. So the prison is just one cell. Yeah, these could be kind of interesting. So restoring Freedale is going to give us more of an overview of a town and encounters at different places. Okay, so at least it's not just a quick dungeon delve. Stray Kismet says, oh, first quest, we need to rescue Lord Easterling. Kevin King says, Tomb of Damara was one of those audio adventures for Mystara. Really? Guess they moved it. I wouldn't mind listening to like a D&D like graphic audio. I don't think they've got anything like that. I know they did that for Pathfinder, and they were halfway decent. They did Rise of the Rune Lords, the Crimson Curse, and what was the other? The Mummy's Mask, something like that. One thing that kind of drove me nuts listening to them was that they only had like really limited sound effects. So whenever they were like battling, fighting with swords, that was the same damn sound effect over and over. And it was like, hey. Darius Terminus says, apparently a barrack is a single building, while barracks implies multiple buildings. Yeah, you might be right. You could very well be right on the money, and I am absolutely wrong. It's just I never hear the word barrack. It's always barracks. All right. So looks like we're getting into another realm. Oh, Icewind Dale. Yes. Good old Icewind Dale. Wow. I actually jumped way past that. Icewind Dale offers survival horror adventures, journeys at the ragged edge of the wilderness, and strange tales of unsettling and ominous events. I don't know. Survival horror? I mean, there's some horrific elements to Rime of the Frost Maiden, but I don't know if I'd call it survival horror. Well, maybe they're changing things up a little bit. And Darius Terminus says, yeah, it threw them off too. It looked like it was basically out of nowhere. Like I said, I'm sure I'm wrong. So here we've got a map. I like that map. That's a cool map. For some strange reason, people got the impression that I hated Rime of the Frost Maiden. I didn't give it it wasn't like a 9 out of 10. But I mean, there were a lot of parts to it I thought were pretty cool. I recommended it. It's kind of funny when I do reviews of stuff, especially when it's D&D stuff. You'll have some folks out there, they're like, they just want me to savage everything because, they hate Wizards of the Coast. And then there are other people who take umbrage to me having any sort of criticism of something in a book. It's like, how dare you? Anyway, Straight Kismet says 10 times becomes more fun when you add the monster from The Thing. Yeah, okay. It was funny. Icewind Dale, that was the first thing I was thinking of when I saw it said survival horror. I'm like, oh, so you're going to ask John Carpenter to maybe pen some encounters for you? Agile Monk says, I've got it at a 7 out of 10. Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I thought it was like 7, 7.5, 7.5. So we have Retaking the Terror. Oh, are we talking about the ship? I like that. I like the Terror from AMC. I had already, listened to the audiobook years before. I thought they did a really nice job with it. And it's kind of a cool aspect of history that's, real history that's kind of being twisted for kind of like a horror aspect. So I dug that too. All right. So here is Kalimshan, which, as I pointed out, I'm not really familiar with. It says, use Kalimshan to run adventures in a desert setting to tell stories of powerful genies vying against each other for dominance and to explore the streets of Kalimport. The Kalim Desert offers endless adventure in a challenging environment where heroes face blue dragons, gnolls, mummies, sphinxes, yuntai, and, of course, genies. Like, I Dream of Genie? I mean, sign me up. Heavy armor becomes a liability. Sandstorms strike without warning, and starvation and thirst are constant dangers. And if you wanted to take the Lost City and drop it on in, that should be okay. Hey, speaking of kind of desert settings, I did see that Wizards of the Coast were they renewing the copyrights on Dark Sun? They were doing something with the copyrights for Dark Sun. So a lot of people out there kind of excited. Kind of excited. All right, so here's our gazetteer. So this is this is probably the main city. Yeah, I would doubt that it's like Cholt and it's got only like one major city. Maybe. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not really familiar with this region. All right, so then we get into our scenes, as and Darius Terminus pointed out, or I guess these are little. These would be maybe a session. Maybe squeeze a couple of these into a session. I would think this is the kind of stuff you just kind of drop on in to an ongoing campaign rather than building something around them. So here we've got Kalim Crossing. Shazar Han, a human merchant, medium, neutral, good commoner, must take his caravan from Memnon to Kalimport, a week-long journey of over 150 miles. His guards are monsters in disguise, intending to lure the caravan to its destruction. This is for level 3. characters. So, of course, this is theater of the mind here. So it looks like each day something's taking place. Here we got the Moonshay Isles. Characters visit the Moonshay Isles for fairy tale adventures, seafaring epics, and stories of protecting nature from exploitation and defilement. Fate coexists with the people of the Moonshays. This might mean welcoming a diminutive pixie into your home, lest it bedevil you with pranks, bringing gifts for sprites so they'll let you hunt in their forest, or asking the local hag for a favor. The heroes of these tales are known for their wit and charm rather than their fighting skill, making these adventures perfect for young players or those who enjoy solving problems through roleplay, humor, and guile. Just like I really liked The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Honestly, I gotta say, it's my favorite of the 5e campaigns. And it is mostly because it has got kind of a fairy tale vibe to it. And there are so many different encounters that you do not need to resort to combat in order to complete. And I really dug that about The Wild Beyond the Witchlight. Because to me, one of the hardest things to do with Dungeons and Dragons nowadays is to really unleash that sense of wonderment that we had when we were kids first being introduced to the game. And weirdly enough, you would think most younger people would have far more points of reference to utilize for Dungeons and Dragons or any fantasy role-playing game. And weirdly enough, it seems like, at least the younger people I encounter, it's the exact opposite. And I'm like, really? I find it very, very weird. You know, I got to be honest, if you've never watched Lord of the Rings, I don't know why you'd be like, yeah, I want to play Dungeons and Dragons. It's like, if you haven't seen Lord of the Rings, I mean, probably haven't seen any fantasy movies, and you probably haven't read any fantasy. It's kind of weird. But I do think that's one of the toughest things about introducing, and it's people of any age, to Dungeons and Dragons today. And that is kind of recapturing that sense of wonder that we all had as players. And I think to do that, adopting more, at least for your first campaign, more of kind of a fairy tale vibe. I've already talked about how I've got Dolmenwood on its way from Exalted Funeral. In fact, I just got an email today that it shipped. So we're probably going to have a Dolmenwood week, probably a week from next. So probably our last week of November, it'll be a Dolmenwood week, and we'll take a look at the 3 major releases. I think if you're introducing a fantasy role-playing game like Dungeons and Dragons to people who maybe they haven't even played Baldur's Gate 3, kind of aim a little more fairy tale-ish just to get things started with, wondrous things as opposed to, gritty battles against orcs and things like that. All right, so Baldur's Gate campaigns encourage tales of urban intrigue, vengeful anti-heroes, and stakes beyond life and death. The city's denizens are flawed, cynical, full of life, and vulnerable to sinister threats. And Darius Terminus says, that's like the 4th or 5th Karlak art piece. Well, it's sure, of course. You don't think Wizards of the Coast is gonna, wait until this horse is dead before they stop beating it? No, they're gonna keep going. Shamir says, to create the wonderment, Wizards of the Coast would need to lower the high-powered magic-centric player characters, bring back campaign settings such as Dark Sun, Ravenloft, and Dragonlance. Well, I mean, they brought back Ravenloft, they brought back Dragonlance for 5e. But once again, all you got was the book. And of course, third-party stuff. So here we've got Baldur's Gate. You know what I think would probably be the absolute best literary fantasy city to play in would have to be Lankhmar. Gotta be Lankhmar. Maybe Sanctuary from Thieves' World would be maybe a distant second, but I think Lankhmar would be pretty wild. All right. So just taking a peek through here. See, I like that. I like that cartography there. That's kind of cool. Agile Monk says, put him through a Castles and Crusades game with a big troll at the bridge and a troll booth. So as Kevin R. Smith points out, yes, again, it looks like Dark Sun is returning. I'm going to take a guess. It's probably going to be along the lines of what we've seen with the past, like Eberron and Dragonlance and Ravenloft, that you'll see a book release and that'll be it. Because that's kind of been the modus operandi for Wizards of the Coast with their other non-Forgotten Realms settings. For the most part, they'll release a book and then it's sort of like, okay, well, third parties out there, knock yourselves out. Enjoy. It's like, okay. So some discussion about Lankhmar 4 Dungeon Crawl Classics. Well, they actually went to Fritz Leiber's home. And actually, I think they went through a lot of his notes and things like that because they made some arrangements with Fritz Leiber's estate. If I remember correctly, I think they also did that with Jack Vance. I could be wrong, but I think that's probably where we've got a lot of the real feel for Lankhmar from Dungeon Crawl Classics. Sadly, I haven't had an opportunity to dive into it. I would have liked to have, but just didn't have an opportunity. Right, so it looks like we've got quite a few different set pieces or scenes or adventures for Baldur's Gate. And then this is going to be our introductory adventure. The characters are contacted by Myrna Nor, a student of magic and wealthy heir. Myrna and her former colleague, Powell the Owl Nickham, have deduced the location of a hidden library built centuries ago by Leth Chantos, an infamous wizard. But Myrna and Powell have had a falling out. The library is believed to contain the Nathlum, a legendary book detailing deadly poisons and powerful spells. Powell wants to recover the Nathlum and sell it to these Interim for a fortune. Myrna wants to preserve the Nathlum and restore Leth Chantos's unjustly tarnished legacy. Myrna hires the characters to find the Nathlum before Powell does. The party travels to the library to find Powell already there. They must overcome her guards and navigate the library's dangers. Eventually, the characters confront Powell to recover the Nathlum. The adventure takes 2 or 3 sessions. When the characters return to Myrna, hopefully with the Nathlum, they will be, or should be, level 3. All right. So this appears to be a pretty typical presentation. So we've got our keyed locations. We've got our read aloud. So mighty short. That was a very short adventure. It's also indicating if you want to customize the adventure and place it somewhere other than the region it's in. Getting some info there. Going to get some new magic items. We got a bestiary. Yep, here's our bestiary. So we have Babir, scheming married ruler. Okay. Dead 3 Scion, which I believe allows for one of the backgrounds that we were taking a peek at, or it was one of the subclasses in Heroes of Faerûn, the Drow of Lolth. So we got a few different Drow types here. Not bad. Not bad at all. Spirit dragons. So we've got, should have the 4 ages of them, right? The Wyrmling, young, adult, and ancient. All right. And this is how we're going to wrap up. Yep, there we go. There's the calendar, which I think this was what's on the back of that poster map with Heroes of Faerûn. All right. That is a peek inside Dungeons & Dragons Forgotten Realms Adventures in Faerûn from Wizards of the Coast. Once again, be sure to get into the running to win both the books that we took a peek at tonight over at D&D Beyond. And once again, very easy for you to jump on in. You've got till noon, Tuesday, November 18th. And all you got to do is be a subscriber to the channel. Give the video a thumbs up. Once again, I can't tell if you did or not, but do me a favor. And then in the comment section, leave a comment. It's your choice. Either something that you saw in the Heroes of Faerûn volume that you thought looked pretty interesting, or something that you found very interesting in the Adventures in Faerûn. And then I will select a lucky viewer at random, and I will announce the winner on Tuesday night's show. Once again, it is going to be November 18th. And then you'll simply need to email me. I'll give you the code for D&D Beyond so you can add both those books to your collection. All right. Very cool. Very nice. So what's cooking next week? Well, I should point out we are still in the midst this week of a Kobold Press Week. So tomorrow I am going to share a first look video. It's not live, but it's going to be a first look video at the new Riverbank cozy role-playing game for my friends over at Kobold Press. Then on Saturday, I'll be sharing my review of Monster Vault 2 for Tales of the Valiant. Next week, live shows. Next Tuesday, we're going to take a look at Traveler Highguard, the update from 2022. Yeah, we're going to start taking a peek at more of the Mongoose Publishing stuff. Wednesday's show, we're going to check out something a little bit different. We're going to take a look at Dynamaps. I had a chance to check these out at GameholeCon, so I've actually got 2 packages. And these are for building rooms on your tabletop. So got that. We're going to be taking a peek at those. That'll be on next Wednesday's show. And then, hang on a second. Next Thursday's show, we're going to take a look at the Gensicon Adventure Bundle from Gooey Cube. If you saw Tuesday's show when we dived on into Darken Haven, it was like, holy cow. This box is a little bit smaller, but not by much. And it's a little bit lighter, but not by much. So that is what is on the agenda for the live shows next week. Wild Hunter says those Dynamaps look useful. Yeah, we're gonna dive in. I might actually take some of those tokens from last night, the Splattered Ink Games acrylic tokens, the top down, maybe use those to kind of get a better feel for what those look like at the game table. So yeah, so we're going to check those out. And as far as I know, I think there's supposed to be a new set of the Dynamaps that are going to be coming out. I think with, if I remember correctly, with like chests and tables and things like that. All righty. So that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell because it's supposed to not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central right here on YouTube. It's also supposed to let you know when I share other videos, such as my recent review of Dungeons Deep. Or no, it was a first look. I haven't done my review yet. My first look at Dungeons Deep from Cobalt Press. If you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, bigger thank you. Big tip of the cap to you, because not only are you keeping me company while I traditionally share the latest news and then unbox a board game or flip through a role-playing game book, what have you, or like we did a double feature of first looks tonight, you're also keeping each other company. So it is much appreciated. Quite a lot. Of course, I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the over 2,300 videos here on the channel. It really does mean a lot to me. Thank you very, very kindly. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you for watching. And until next time, I certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.